Welcome to CSGO News for the Week, a roundup, because you guys are missing out on the 30-minute intros every day, and those are fun sometimes, but the problem was that I could only go over what happened that day, and I didn't put it in the title, I didn't put it in the thumbnail, I didn't tell anybody on Twitter, so nobody knew where to find it. And I said I would start making news videos for the week, and now we've got a series of news topics that we could talk about, and I could put them all in one video. And I don't know what we're going to do with this. I don't know if I'm going to change how this video looks. I don't know if I'm going to call it CSGO News for the Weeks. This is just episode 1, where we have a lot of good content we can put into one video, and this is where you can find the CSGO News. For all of you who may or may not be following, literally following people on Twitter to get that news, or following the CSGO scene closely, and maybe are just watching demo reviews here and there, this video is for you. I don't think it's going to be very opinion heavy, just lightly, and I'm just going to kind of try to cover as many things in like a digestible amount of time. So it is Tuesday the 7th, and a lot of stuff has happened in the last week, so that's why it calls for a video. So why don't we get right into it? We can talk about Complexity getting Coldzera as a rumor. There is the chance that Complexity will pick up Coldzera. He's supposed to come in to replace, I guess, NATO Safix at first, and the problem with that, of course, is that Config is on the team. So if he's coming in to replace NATO Safix, that would mean he was here to replace Config. But of course, if you have BlameF and you have JKS and you have Coldzera, you have too many players that are all baiting for kill. No, you have too many players that are playing slowly. So it doesn't really make sense that Coldzera is coming in to replace Config, who there's no problem with. So it seems like maybe Coldzera is coming in to replace JKS, which would be sad to see. And my only main comment on this is that I really can't wait for the moment where we're kind of past COVID, all these issues, and we can just talk about how good players are on LAN, and there's no unfortunate roster moves. And Complexity have had a horrible year, having to go through Oboe, surgery of Poison, surgery of Config, stand-ins left, right, and center, and now are actually making real roster moves. With a lot of instability, and we didn't get to see a full 5 play for a long period of time on LAN or anything like that. But that's the nature of things. Things like the world keeps moving with or without you, and unfortunately for Complexity, that means they have to make some changes. So I put Peacemaker in brackets here because I realized one thing is that Peacemaker and Coldzera are friends. And I remember that Coldzera actually made a comment in regards to Peacemaker that he is actually a good coach.
I think I would choose Peacemaker. I think Peacemaker is pretty good. He's really smart, and he make Mad Lions a good team. So he helped the guys a lot. So he show some of the Brazilian Counter-Strike for them. He always take notes from the teams during the practice. So he have good strats. He know how to anti-strats pretty well. So I would choose Peacemaker because he's really smart and he can control the team pretty well.
So now it's kind of making sense for me to see him coming onto the team. And from a money perspective as well, Coldzera is an interesting prospect because he has a giant fan base behind him. He activates Brazil. It's kind of like Fallen going to Liquid. So from an organizational standpoint, you have a player who is liked by the coach, who has a giant brand, who is a really strong player, even though might not be a natural fit unless he replaces someone on the team. In terms of how hopeful I am that Coldzera will reach his SK days, Luminosity days, the heights of those 2 years, I'm obviously not hopeful that that'll happen, but that's not necessary per se. If you have Config, BlameF, and then Poison, who can maybe step up a bit in the future, come together, then maybe this roster change makes a lot of sense. So in our next piece of news, the COVID restrictions have been lifted in Sweden. Will be lifted, I think, by the end of the month in Sweden. So that means that, first of all, players were already fine to travel. They're being able to get the visas they needed to make it to the major. And now the visitors who are coming just to watch, and journalists and other members of media, can come to Sweden for the major as well. So it seems like there will be no problems with Stockholm hosting the CSGO major. The PGL major will continue, but we don't know for sure. And I'll keep you guys up to date on the CSGO News of the Week, the #1 news source for CSGO News, next week, if anything happens. Denmark was also another option. Just wanted to bring that up because they've officially lifted all the restrictions. I will be going to Denmark for Blast in a week and a half or something for the Blast Fall Series, and that'll be and Denmark are just they're done. They reached a certain vaccination rate. They've opened up totally. There are absolutely no restrictions anymore. So that part of the world is a much better place in that regard. Heroic stuff. Okay, so Heroic just tweeted this, so let's just read through this really quickly. Okay, so for people who are completely in the dark, I would like to say this first. Generally, this message is actually fair. We have to be careful about what we say that is provable or not about the Heroic players. And what this is in regards to is that Hunden came out and said that all of his team knew that he was using the coach bug scandal, and in fact implicated Tessus and saying Tessus actually help him set up the coach bug camera on one of the maps in one of their games, and said that Nico, who now plays for OG, he has like a recording of him saying something like, yes, everyone knew, something like that. So we'll see now that they're formally being investigated by ESIC, which is the other part of this, what will come of this. Part of people's frustrations at the moment is that some of the Heroic players haven't said anything, and tweets like from Glaive earlier this year where he said, if the players didn't know, then they would come forward and say something, because that's what I would do. And he kind of, held the fire to Cadian and a few other Heroic players and said, well, if you really didn't know and you didn't have a part of this, and why wouldn't you say that? Why don't you just tweet it? And no one has. And I think at the time, that was a very divisive stance, and I think Glaive kind of pulled it back a little bit. But it is very fair to say that there should be some suspicions about the fact that if Hunden has a camera that he can see a part of the map during an entire game, and they're trying to use that to try to win matches, that it's likely that he's giving his team information that would sound weird if they didn't know what he was doing, right? That is a thing. And then the other thing is that it's very common for orgs and other teams to keep records of every match played with all the full comms so that teams can review it later. But that never came out, and we don't know if Heroic had those recorded, but that is another thing. So right now, there is the idea that Heroic have hidden a lot of stuff in order to protect their players and, of course, their brand. And that's pretty much all they have. So I almost understand why they would want to do that. But at the same time, if it comes to light that the players did help cheat and that this was true, these would be insanely damning allegations. And that means the players would end up getting a ban from ESIC. Cadian's huge story in the last year or two would be completely upended, and he would probably be banned if he was implicated in this. And yeah, it would be insane. And of course, Heroic would have no team. So listen, outside of the ethical, whatever ethical standpoint you're looking at this from, if you're Heroic, you can understand why you're doing everything in your power to make sure that nothing comes to light. Things are starting to bubble to the surface. And even though Hunden has not been a reliable source of information and has actively and openly got caught lying in the past year, the question arises, well, why should he lie about this? And these are already things that we thought were true. So we'll see what happens. We'll follow this story as well. Nordavind rebrand to a pair of lungs. This is their new team. The OPLANO roster that they've picked up. That's great. VSM recently unbanned by the new Valve rules. That means that if you got banned before a certain time in CS, it won't be held against you. Okay, if you were a kid going to an internet cafe playing against your friends and got your Steam account banned back in the day, it's all good, Valve says now. You're not just banned forever. But if you did cheat at a Valve-sponsored event, if you did cheat within a certain amount of time, like last 5 years, no, you don't get to play. VSM falls out of the category. Great to have him in CS. This roster is scary. I do think Henny leaving Furia is one of the big tragedies in the past year, but at the same time, I can understand why he wanted to play with his brother. That's a very common theme. Hunter Nico, Lucas Henny. Okay. If you'd like to support my content, support my one and only sponsor, DJEsports.io. Use my referral link in the description for 400 free DJT, which you can use to enter into the Prediction World Series, where you can predict the outcomes of some of the major esports events, including Dota's The International, the CSGO PGL Major, and the League World Finals coming up this fall-winter season, for a total prize pool of 10 million USDT. If you use your 400 DJT, make sure to drop by their Discord and ask ModMail for 800 more. Happy betting, and thanks for supporting me. Golden wants to be back in the server. I'd just like to give Golden the spotlight for a second. I do feel like Golden is a strong IGL. He got cut from Fnatic, the new Fnatic roster. I guess I should go over that really quickly in case there's anybody who doesn't know about the new Fnatic roster. They have picked up a couple of lads here in Alex and Mezzi. to join in with Crims, Brolin, and Jaquinho. I think a very strong core. Jaquinho has shown a couple of shaky performances with the new lineup. He needs to get that together. I did a video on him. I thought he was insane, so figure it out. Mezzi looks amazing. We should do a demo on him soon. Team as a whole, kind of impressive. Golden on this lineup before, where they had JW, Crims, Brolin, Jaquinho. I've heard he is an amazing IGL, and I've heard he's one of the most prepared IGLs in the game. And I've heard he's a great person and a great teammate. And yet, I did not see that on Fnatic. I didn't see a Fnatic that was operating with any semblance of preparation. I didn't see a tactical Fnatic. I didn't see any of that. So I think when he came onto the team, he played like them a lot. He was very aggressive. I think he was having a lot of fun with the playstyle. But I think maybe you give this guy a different atmosphere, and he can make a real team out of it. So I would look forward to seeing Golden on a team that's nothing like Fnatic. And I really think he should get a second chance, because I've heard too many good things from other players to believe that this is the best that we've seen. So this is Tessa is talking about how there's a lot of hate going on. Of course, there's a lot of pressure right now on the players, who are probably getting tweeted every 2 minutes by people who are very furious about, the integrity of the game, which, I mean, it makes sense that happens. This is the deal. When you're a player, you're in the spotlight and you have fans. Even if things aren't completely 100%, this is the world we live in. It's going to be hot in the kitchen. So this is Tessa's talking about this. Of course, I don't think this even helps him to, have a title like this come out, because it just makes him look silly, but it is what he said. And yeah, Rush announces free agency. So I didn't watch this yet. Have it bookmarked, but I heard the episode is really good. Rush went on a Reflections with Thorin, talked about the last year, and he's also talked about looking out for options in Valorant and CS. And of course, the issue for any player in North America right now, if you're not on a team, is finding a new one. European CS is bussin', but at the same time, we've got Academy League teams in Europe, a lot of the best teams in Europe, so many very hot countries, and some of the most amount of talent I've ever seen. But every other region is basically suffering to their absolute limits, and North America is one of those. So if you're Rush right now, and EG is not an option, and Liquid's not an option, then there aren't really options, right? People are like, join Bad News Bears and say Bad News Bears. No, Rush isn't going to join Bad News Bears. You have a certain amount of value that you're upholding as a player. Let's say you dip a bit in form, you know what I mean? But you're still major winner who just came off a really good team. You can't just go here and then carry this team and hope, because if you go here onto this team and then you don't carry them, or things are just horrible, then you just lose your value. So you need to just wait, try to get a good offer, but don't jump in too soon. And that should be Rush's strategy before he picks a new team, or if he just goes to Valorant, where things are a lot better for North American players. RPK retires from competition. RPK, 32 years old, did a hell of a lot. I think his level was probably higher in CSS. I've heard him being called the first or second best player in CSS by a few people, by how nuts he was. And I have to say, I was incredibly doubtful of him in CSGO, because I didn't watch CSS. I thought it was an abomination of a game, I won't lie to you. I actually quit Counter-Strike when CSS came out. So I was playing 1.6. CSS came out. This fucking cartoon figures running around with their bullets falling out of their gun. Thought this game was horrible, so I quit. So I missed it. So I didn't get to see the tank and CSS at his best. But in CSGO, he came in, it was a slow start. He wasn't looking great. But he ended up on the best French team, achieved a lot with Vitality, improved his level a ton, was a solid anchor. He was an incredible player near the end, but he was clearly still a reason why the team was winning, and that's all that matters. And I heard he was a fantastic teammate from other players as well. So salute to RPK. He did it all. Go buy some of his merch. I think he tweeted out some of that. Yeah. Keep that legacy alive and support some of the legends from our game. If there's one thing Counter-Strike has that very few games have, it's the history. Makka is coming in potentially to replace Jax on G2. It's a consideration. I guess it means it might happen. Makka is an opper. I don't know much about him. G2 need an opper. I heard Almanac was IGLing. Somebody DM'd me to say Almanac was IGLing because Nexa needed a break after the player break. I find it ridiculous that even though it was a very embarrassing way to lose Pro League, 0-5, that in reality, after 0-3, they didn't even have a chance to go on. Like, they were already out. And then they literally got second place at the last major LAN that they would consider making a roster move. To me, it's ridiculous. Also, historically, after player breaks is where the most amount of upset happens. So if you want to get on DJ Esports and make a bet, do it now. You know what I'm saying? Because historically, Liquid beat Astralis for like one of their only times ever after a player break. It's usually those January ones after a major, that kind of thing. So I think like put too much stock into this. And also, and Nex is not even calling. They were not at full strength. But that being said, maybe this is a long time coming. Okay, people are like, oh, why don't you call it Almanac? Because Almanac is the guy who can do everything. He's actually more of an interesting prospect with a Mac 10 in his hand than he is with an op. He was a opper on Misfits, and he was a very good opper. But he was the only opper at this level who could make grand finals of a LAN and be like number 3 in the world and not be a world-class elite opper. Shiro, Simple, even Brokey has been nuts. Device, whoever you want to put up here, Zywoo, all those players, you know, Almanac is at the bottom of the list, but the team is way up there. So makes perfect sense to get Almanac off the op. Stop giving him new role. Literally IGLing for the team. Get him into a position where he can buy any cheap gun in a round. Let him do the million things that he does on T side. Let him entry some rounds. Let him hybrid op, but not primary. Take the responsibilities off him because he's too versatile. And stop, CSGO teams, making versatile players do your important roles. Let them be versatile. But once you make a versatile player op, that's all they can do. They can't even spend extra money on the eco rounds. They have to save for an op, or someone has to save for them. They get to move around a lot less. They don't get to support, which is really, really important. They don't get to lurk. They don't get to do anything. So stop neutering your own players. Same thing happened to Esatag on Cloud9. They tried to make him play every role because he's versatile. He's not an entry fragger. He wasn't an opper. He shouldn't have been doing that. He was an opera, but not elite. Okay, I think it could make sense, not because I'm excited necessarily for Makka. I just don't know a lot about him, but because the rest of the roles might make sense. I feel bad because Jax, he's a beacon of positivity, and again, I've heard he's an amazing teammate to have, especially in terms of the vibes. I think the vibes are immaculate with Jax on the team. Everyone knows that, but he's not as well-rounded as Almanac, and Almanac can do the entering, even if Jax might be specifically a better entry fragger. VP to potentially lose Sanji. You know I hate moves like this. Honestly, besides Yakinder and then Jame, who his calling has been a bit weird, you could remove someone else and improve the team. It's not like anyone's criticizing Sanji for the job he's doing. Like, how can we not have a player of the same quality as Yakinder and Jame on the roster and then scapegoat Sanji? Doesn't make sense to me. Hate that. Singularity with Guardian. That's another thing that they picked up a team that has Guardian, Seized, and a few other Russian-Ukrainian players. So some of you may know Guardian, a very famous opera. Used to play, I think his last team was officially FaZe Clan and then retired. Decided he wanted to make a comeback. I'm not stoked for this team. I think they're going to be bad. I don't expect a lot from Seized, but I really want to know if Guardian can get to the level that he's aiming for again. Because he wasn't known as he's not the kind of player who got pushed out because of a nerf, you know what I mean? Like in the sense that Kenny S got nerfed out of his status as like the best opper. Guardian was known for just being a very, very smart opper, a low sense opper, one who just knew how to find opening kills the best, like get an edge in every round. So, maybe he can survive the test of time. I hope you enjoyed that CSGO News for the Week News Roundup. If you like this format, let me know. If you don't like it, keep it to your damn self. Okay? See you next week for the CSGO News of the Week, Episode 2.